Hey, we just got out of the Google I/O 2017 keynote, and there was frankly a lot of stuff on display. We learned a lot about programs we knew about and stuff that we completely were caught surprised by. Nate, what are your big takeaways?
One of the first things we saw was Google Lens, and that was probably one of the coolest things I think they introduced. It is basically an augmented reality app. They didn't say if it was coming to iPhone, but it'll certainly be on Android. Basically, you point your camera at objects in the real world, and it will tell you what they are, what's around. So let's say you're on a city in New York, you point your phone at a restaurant, it'll pull up info about it, you can make reservations. You point at a flower, it'll tell you what kind of flower it is, so on and so forth. And it integrates with the Google Assistant, so you can start like asking it to do things for you, like send you directions, that sort of thing.
Yeah, Lens is intriguing to me because in part it sounds very familiar. So when we saw the Galaxy S8 launch, a big part of the Bixby experience was Bixby Vision, which set out to do a lot of what Google Lens does, albeit in a much more limited fashion. So I do have hope that Google Lens will sort of outperform Bixby because it's
Google doing it.
It's Google doing it, and also Bixby just isn't great right now.
Right.
I also have hope that Lens will wind up on an iPhone eventually because, as we also learned, Google Assistant is now available for the iPhone.
It's out now. I already downloaded it to my phone. It is working, and it's actually a little bit more integrated into iOS than I thought it would be. When you ask it to play some music, it'll pop up some suggestions, and then it'll say, do you want me to open in Apple Music or in YouTube? So it works with the Apple default music app.
That also speaks really nicely to what felt like the overall theme of that keynote, which was mobile is great, AI is the future.
And it seems like they're prepping developers for that reality. It's not everywhere yet. It's coming to things like Lens, the Assistant. There's AI all over Google Photos. And Google's been talking about how important machine learning is to all of its initiatives for a few years now. And basically they're really just trying to get people ready for a future where it's less about software running right on the device and more about tapping into the massive resources Google has available, using all that knowledge to do smarter and smarter things with all the devices you use.
We also learned a little more about the new version of Android, Android O. We unfortunately do not know what the O stands for. My money is still on Oreo.
So commercial.
We knew quite a bit about Android O coming into this because of the developer preview that was released back in March. There is a public beta. You can get in on this now. A little more clarity was provided, although, again, it's all fairly basic stuff. I think two of the things that were most exciting to me was Google's focus on what they called vitals. So improving performance and battery life on your device, really with no work from you involved. It's all happening on a low level, really behind the scenes. And that's what everyone's after, right? You want the better experience without any extra work. I hate managing apps and trying to make sure my memory is in a proper place. And it feels like with O, a lot of that's not going to be an issue, especially when it comes to lower end devices.
Well, so going back to battery for a minute, Android is going to limit how much apps can do in the background to some extent, so they aren't like tearing up your RAM and running through your battery. And for years, you've been constrained by the physical size of batteries, basically to make your phone run longer, right? Like if you want to have a better battery, it's got to be bigger. Now it looks like Android is finally going to use some of its software smarts to make that better.
This is also, I think, really crucially important for low-end devices. And we've got a lot of focus on that with Android Go, which is not quite its own version of Android. It's sort of a modified version of Android O that'll be available for devices, I believe, running 1 GB of RAM or less. So situations where memory management and performance tend to take a hit right now.
It seems to be very focused on sort of emerging countries and places where there aren't huge 4G networks everywhere and where the phones, they need to be less expensive to get them to people's hands. So what Google's doing is figuring out how to make Android run well on these devices with specs that were frankly low end a few years ago, right? It's sort of like the Android One program that Google announced a few years ago, which was another initiative to get Android working on lower end phones. That didn't really go anywhere, but I think this version of it sounds more well thought out and well put together, and hopefully it'll start really making a difference for people trying to get online.
Yeah, we're also seeing developers flocking already to Android Go. There will be versions of apps beyond just Google that allow you to sort of function more ably offline where data connections really are sort of scarce, and again, really optimized for these sort of lower end devices. Google has been trying to chase these next billion users for years now. This is a recurring theme for them.
So I think you could say they got them though, because today Google announced that there's 2 billion Android devices active every month right now, a new milestone, a crazy amount of people. So now I think they're calling it just like the next billions at this point.
And the invasion of Google into our lives continues with Home, which got some updates too. I think most notably is calling. So you can now call people using your Google Home speaker.
And you don't have to pair it with a phone to do that. If you have a Google Home, you can start placing free calls to anyone in the US and Canada, I believe, for free, It'll show up as a private number for the people you call, but you can also link it to your own personal phone number, so they'll see that when you ring. You can just say, hey, call my mom, Google, and it'll do that. And so basically you've got a new speakerphone in your house. It's a feature that goes directly in competition with Amazon, who's doing something similar. So other updates to Google Home include a new notification system where if there's something that Home thinks you need to know, like let's say your commute's gonna be longer because of an accident, it'll flash a light and you can ask it what's up. It'll tell you, hey, your commute's gonna take an extra 15 minutes, so get going early. It's using its machine learning AI smarts to pull that information from everything it knows about you and alert you when it thinks you need to.
I think it's safe to say that that thread is one that's going to be woven through the rest of Google's projects going forward. There is a level of intelligence that we sort of now expect from our smartphones that Google is really, really well positioned to take advantage of. We've seen other companies kind of go that route as well. Alexa with Amazon, I think, is a very particular, strong example of that. Yeah. Apple sort of out there. We're not entirely sure what their AI ambitions are. We know Siri as an assistant has been around for a long time and it's continually getting better, but I haven't seen the sort of really foundational leaps ahead that I think we've seen here today.
Well, with Google, the thing is that Google knows more about you if you use its products than Apple does, and that is a huge advantage. It's where the privacy concerns with Google come into play sometimes to people, but if you're okay letting them access the information and having your Google account and letting them see everything you do, then they can really use that info in a smart way and in a way that no one else can really compete with.
Anyway, there is a whole lot more to see and do here at Google I/O 2017. I think Nate and I are going to go get some lunch, but after that, we're going to dive in and bring you a whole lot more.
We're going to go get it. Stay tuned to Engadget for more from Google I/O 2017.